Please God, where's my charger?
It's okay. We are live. It's okay, Marcus. If you have to grab it, it's okay. Hey, everyone. Yay, we have some people watching already. We love you, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching us from. Today, we're here to talk about the state of education, right? We have an amazing group of my family and friends. You know how we do. We only bring the people we love to this platform to talk about things that are important to us as a community, right? Even though, we're luxury and legacy, DMV luxury homes, everyone thinks it's all about real estate. No, it is about building a legacy, which is more than just wealth and money and properties, right? And so today we are talking about the state of education. So I brought some very special people here today to talk about how we feel about what's happening in in education right now and the education sector and how we plan to navigate that in this next year. So first we have Miss Benita Grant. Yay! And we'll just go around robin. Benita, you want to introduce yourself to the people?
Yes, how you doing? My name is Benita Grant, and I own Cure My Credit Scores. We help people build their credit scores so they can buy houses. Prior to me working on credit, my passion is to help people achieve their highest possibility. So prior to me working on credit, I was in the school system for 10 years. Again, to help people achieve their highest possibility. So I did middle school, high school, and my final conclusion was elementary school. So this is all exciting for me. And I have 3 kids. I have twins that are 7, and I have a 3-year-old delicious, all boys, and they're delicious and cute, and I'm winning. So that's me.
Yeah, how do I miss that? I did not recall. I mean, we've been on lockdown for a minute. I remember the twins. I'm so sorry. I said that earlier. Yes, 3 boys to my 3 girls. So
Yep, exactly. 3 boys to your 3 girls. And all I wanted was girls. And God was like, and boys.
I just knew I was a boy mom. Like, what?
Yes, right?
Awesome. And then we have Melissa Miller here, who is also my BFF of all things, right? We met at the Howard University before we were even, like, when we still had, like, Similac on our breath. But now she is HU,
you know.
Awesome. Melissa, you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Melissa Miller. I am currently a school counselor in middle school in New York City. I spent 10 years as a classroom teacher in high school teaching science. So I'm a content specialist in science. And I went to Howard University. I'm a Howard University alum. We're all over the place. My why for education was that I love young people. I think that their take on life is so unique and fresh, and every day is a new day. And it's almost as an adult, you don't get that reset, but working with children and having children, I'm sure you know that every day is absolutely different from the day before. No day is the same. And so when you're working with young people, I felt it was important to transition from the classroom into counseling so that I could help them make the bridge from not only classroom and personal life, but how they show up in the world, because they become global citizens and we want the best of the best coming from our community. And that's why I do what I do.
Yay.
That's amazing.
And I think what's extra special about our educators is that, like, we see, especially once our kids are in school, we see a part of their lives, right? But the educators probably see a little bit more of the real deal than we do, So it's just kind of cool to get that perspective. Like, I call Melissa, and I mean, when I tell you I get these like mind-blowing moments of reality when it comes to how children really think and operate, because it's been a long time for us, right? And we're around 3 kids, and she's around, like, how many kids are in your school?
Hundreds.
Right. There are 250 in my school itself. We share a building with 2 other schools. So I'm around close to 1,000 kids all day.
All day.
Awesome.
The energy. That's amazing.
a lot of energy.
Yay. And next we have one of my other BFFs. This was my born ready BFF, right? I was born with a best friend, and her name is Linnea Heatley. She is my cousin, more like my sister, and she is also a mother, right? Nanny, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I do. Hi, I'm Linnea Heatley. I'm a digital marketing analyst here in the San Francisco Bay Area. As Michelle mentioned, I am her best friend. I'm her first best friend. I'm her big sister. I am a single mother of three. I have a young adult and two high school kids. One's just starting high school, my baby. He's not a baby, but he's my baby. Yeah, just starting high school here. And real quick, if I can just speak to Mel real quick, I'm always trying to give Mel her flowers whenever I speak to her. But so my middle child started high school during the pandemic, and she's an extrovert, so she was just having a really hard time with it. And she's normally an overachiever, but it was not reflected in her freshman year grades. And so we were kind of getting a little bit down because we had this plan and was feeling like we were kind of far off from it. And Michelle says, "Hey, let's get Amaya on the phone." Amaya, that's my middle child. Let's get her on the phone with Mel, right? And I will tell you, Mel spent an hour on the phone with Amaya, and life changing. My baby is so like her whole everything is geared towards going to Howard now. Just speaking to Mel about her plans, she's like researching their soccer program. It's so amazing. Just the impact that Mel had on my baby in an hour. So there you go.
Yay! And then we have Marcus. Marcus here. He's also a dad. He's like always the guy here hanging out with us ladies. Thank you, Marcus. And then he's also one of our lending partners. So Marcus is the mortgage coach. And Marcus, you want to tell? I did a little intro, but you want to tell people anything else about yourself, sir?
Girl dads rule. So
Fact.
that's first and foremost. There's nothing like it. So, but I'm the oldest of four. Mom and dad. I come from an educational background. With educators on my mom's side for the most part. I don't know if I celebrated or not, but I'm a college flunk out. But they sent my butt home in 1996. But I was determined not to stay there. And 96, I was grinding, worked hard, bought my first condo when I was 21 years old. Kept it for like 6 years, turned that 50 grand into 200,000 and kept going. And then I got into the mortgage business in 2003, and I wanted to serve the people. I wanted to come and go as I please, and I wanted to make a lot of good money. And come here, baby. What I find is that my passion, God opened up a lot of doors for me. Go ahead. See, okay. So this is the one that runs. She runs it. Okay. Sorry, but I found that God opened up a ton of doors for me because I have a background. I went to school for accounting, but I didn't see the numbers. But then when I got into the mortgage business, it allowed me to use my natural personality, my work ethic to really find out what people really were looking for. So when they have hopes and dreams and goals of home ownership, or to try to figure out how do I maximize the hard work that I put in, going to work every day, I got to live somewhere. So how do I do it in a wise way? Just started thinking outside the box and really trying to help people achieve their dreams and their goals. So it hasn't been without ups and downs, because I experienced the roller coaster of the crash in 2006, 7, 8, right? And we're here now. We had a little bit in between, but now we're here with this next wave roller coaster. And I still find myself educating people as much as I hated school. Still find myself educating people, trying to make sure I meet their needs and find a way to serve them where they are. And there's no loan scenario too great or too small. And I'm here. I'm here for the long haul. I got about probably 10 to 15 more years of doing it like this, I think. But I'm really trying to diversify and teach some young folks how to do this business the right way, and to do it easier than the way that I've done it. But I know how to do it, and I know how to train. So if you're looking to get in this business, come holler at your coach. Get on the right team.
I know that's right. Everybody gets to win.
Yay, awesome. And so now we'll segue a little bit, right? So we have some educators here, we have parents here, we have, people who are in the industry of helping people build legacy and generational wealth. That's what we're all about here. Let's segue a little bit, right? State of education. So we have school starting. For some of us, school has started, right? For some of us, school is starting. How are y'all? I mean, we have shootings in the school. We are coming out of the pandemic, or we're in this new normal. We have monkeypox. We have all these things happening. We have a potential recession happening, and school starts for me on the 29th. Nay, your kids
Me
are
too.
already in school.
They're already in school, yes.
Benita, when yours?
29.
Marcus, Monday. Melissa,
Yep,
when do you
Monday.
guys go back?
The kids don't come back until September 8th, and I don't go until September 6th.
Oh, wow.
She gonna stretch that out.
Right.
We've been in school 2 weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah.
My time.
So how are you guys feeling about that? How's everyone feeling about sending your people, your young people, off to the education system? And Melissa, how are you feeling about diving back in? I remember when you went back last year, we were like afraid. How are you feeling? Marcus, how are you feeling about the baby going to school on Monday?
So first grade, she goes to a private school.
First grade.
Yeah, and
Congratulations.
her mind's exploding with curiosity and questions and how she's putting different things together. The school probably has 150 kids in it, maybe 200 kids. I'm not sure of the total amount, but I feel pretty confident. It's a small Christian school. I feel pretty confident about the curriculum. I feel confident about the security of the school. I actually have taken my wife and I have taken somewhat of a role as trying to be. We're one of the few African Americans in the school, African American families. So my beautiful brown girl is walking around there like very, loving, very friendly, and she's getting the most out of it. So, but I did talk to them about the security and making sure that they have the locked doors and things like that, and make sure everything's at secure access. But from the educational perspective, I don't have any concerns at all. She's right where she should be.
She's in a private school, right?
Correct. Now, and the kids. So when she goes to the private school, she actually is in the community with a lot of the public school kids. So you can see how aggressive the public school mind is, and at that, or the kids are, versus the public school. And I didn't go to private school, so public school kids always made fun of the private school kids. Now I have a private school kid. And
so what do you mean she's in a community with public school kids in private school? You mean like when you guys are home? Or
yeah, everybody in the neighborhood. Yeah, I shouldn't say everybody, but most kids in this neighborhood go to public school.
Okay. When she's in her neighborhood, she's in.
Yeah, so that's what I'm sorry for clarity. So most of the kids in the neighborhood go to public school, and so when I see her on the playground or going to camps and things like that, the things that she experiences, I can't shield her from everything, but I try. I'm still dad to take care of my kid, but I just kind of see how she responds, and she responds pretty good. But it is a different world out there.
It is, and it's real. And you even made the connection between like your home life and your community, and in the word, shield. Like in your mind, like private school is a way of shielding, right? And then, in the neighborhood, you have the park, and then it's a mixture, right? And Melissa, as you can tell, right? Like it's real. Like I used to work in a charter school and I worked in public school. And there's a huge difference. There's a difference in the ability to get things done. Melissa, you may be able to come in on this one. Like,
it depends on where you live. So I will tell any and everybody that public school and private school are completely different. Yes, you're paying for a certain number of class cap, things of that nature. And everything has its good and its bad, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that us as people of color, we would like to expose our children to things that are greater than what we may have experienced. I went to private school. I also went to public school. I think that the things that were happening, now this is a long time ago, that were happening in private school were not happening in public school. So just to be frank, my public school friends did not have access to some of the things that if we knew about, or our parents knew about, that would be shocked and appalled, like, you go to public school because I don't want you to have that type of access. Like, get that. I'll go with the rough and tough over what's happening over here because, again, it's access, right, and exposure. And it really depends on where you live. If you live in a community with higher taxes and a good, better school system, I would say, and I think most people would say, I'm going to send my kid to that public school because it's a 10. Right? Because some public schools are 9s and 10s. And so why would you spend private school money when you're getting a 9 and 10 education at the public school, right? But if you live in a community where the taxes are not spent in the school the same way, then I understand why people choose to send their kids to private school because of the aspects of the focus on your child. You want your child to be in a smaller class size so they can have the focus on them and the skills and making sure that the foundation is very strong so that when they get to high school and beyond, they're able to survive. They're good readers. They're good at problem solving, things that happen differently in public and private. On the safety aspect, I will say this. Don't be scared, because I'm not, but I have metal detectors in my school. So I'm not afraid. I also work in a Title I neighborhood, so that's not usually, violence is not something that we encounter in the same way as maybe rural, suburban, because unfortunately the kids see it enough that it's like school is a safe space. So they don't want to bring that to school. That's a different, it's not a novelty to them. And so that's the good part / bad part, right? Like bringing a gun to school, you don't hear often, if ever, school in an urban community getting shot up. That's just not something that we hear about. Like someone coming in with AR, I don't know the numbers, I'm not a good gun person, pacifist, but they're not coming because one, the neighborhood, two, the kids will have the smoke for you, right? The kids are not as skittish, but they're still children. And I don't want to make them seem like they're hardened. They're not, they're kids. When something happens, they look at me and I'm always like, me? They're like, yeah, you go fix that. They're fighting, they're arguing. So they come to the adults. And, I think that that's something that I don't want to say is only a suburban or rural issue, but it's not so much of as a concern because I am in school with a metal detector. Like it's going to be hard pressed to get through our metal gates on the windows and through the metal detector with anything. And if you come to my school, you get stopped.
So I will say for me, so I'll touch upon a couple of things that you talked about. So in regards to the pandemic, as I had mentioned kind of earlier on in the phone call, is that I had these extrovert children, right? And so the pandemic was really hard on them. So I, fortunately, the high school is a charter high school. When the pandemic was going on, he was in a public middle school. In a very middle class, upper middle to upper middle class area. We don't live in the neighborhood where my kids go to school, thanks to an old program long ago. California, that old Bush No Child Left Behind program. Schools that were underperforming schools, you were able to transfer your kids out as long as it was in the school district out to higher performing schools. And me being the lady that I am, I got on that stuff right away. And we kind of got grandfathered into these programs. So even though they expired, because we were grandfathered in, and then as it ended, my son came of age and the sister was already in. So we were able to get him into these schools just purely because we were kind of grandfathered into it. So they've always went to schools in a different neighborhood than where we lived, right? So kind of touching upon Marcus's point about community a little bit. So one of the concerns that, like I said, as far as the pandemic was just that there was their education. There was a lack. My kids are not Zoom kids. They are not one to sit there in the computer and actively take notes. We had a really hard time with that. So I partnered with the educators at both of their schools. And my daughter's charter school, they were running a pilot program where they were bringing in kids initially, and they were setting up like these cohorts, right? So instead of like switching classes, you put these 14 kids in a cohort and they stayed together the entire day. So if there was an outbreak, it was pretty much contained. That was going on for her high school. My son, his principal, amazing principal, partnered with me, and we'd have him go in 2 days a week. So he was kind of like in school and then kind of as a TA, right? So kind of keeping them engaged. And that was invaluable for me. And like I said, these extroverted children, because they still were able to have some semblance of a routine throughout that. So we're vaccinated. Everybody got vaccinated as early as possible for their different age groups. So not so much concern there for me by way of like the pandemic. In regards to safety, it's funny, Mel, kind of piggybacking on what you said, because they do go to the schools or the type of schools that are usually affected by those things. So it was not uncommon for us to get emails saying that they got a threat and the police department went and checked out the school. Yeah, so that was, very concerning. And I am prior military. So I remember kind of teaching my kids on how to low crawl and stay in the ground and how to hide behind things if there's an active shooter and how to play dead. And once you don't hear it, how to run. So I did my own little additional reinforcement of some of the things that kind of maybe the school was teaching. So there was a little bit of fear there. But, I pray over my kids. So before I send them out, God has them covered. So I don't move in fear that way either. But yeah, those are some of my concerns. Charter school versus public school. We've been in amazing public school districts, like I said, because we've been able to kind of transfer out. So to Mel's point, great schools, lots of resources there. And the charter school is just more of a continuation of that. So I've been very fortunate as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. And so, I think that it's really cool because the reality is there isn't a correct answer, right? It's just like all of us here are Black people, and everyone thinks like, all Black people are the same. Well, in actuality, we're not, right? And there's no way to parent the right way, right? There's no handbook. So everyone shares. So for me, most of you guys almost everyone here already knows my business, right? But for me, I have 3 girls. I have my oldest daughter, right? My oldest daughter, she's going into the 1st grade. And then I have the middle girl, number 2, and she is now going into kindergarten. And then we have Grace, right? The boss baby who is running everything. And she's 3 years old. So this is actually the first time that they're going back to school since the pandemic started, right? So they've been home. So we've been here, my husband and I, building this businesses with 3 kids in tow for 3 years, y'all. See this?
Wow.
Okay. So can I say glory to God? Hallelujah. Thank God for the 29th. Hallelujah. Right?
Amen. Amen. God is good.
Lord, hallelujah. Thank you. But do I still have those fears about school safety, about COVID? I would honestly say no, not as much as I did before, right? I would say my biggest concern for me was, will my girls be prepared academically and socially for that school environment, right? And so just a little story today, Eden had her kindergarten orientation. So we literally just walked in the door. And when we walked in the door, I looked around all the, they have all the numbers and letters and stuff around the room. And I was like, oh, she got this.
Yeah.
Oh, she got this. So that concern kind of went away. And for me, again, most of especially Benita, all you guys actually know, we've had this discussion before. So we lived in Alexandria. We were actually there yesterday for Eden's birthday. Old Town is my favorite part of the entire DMV, right? We spent all day yesterday sitting at the park on the water, feeding the ducks. Well, they didn't let us feed the ducks yesterday. But that's usually our pastime. And we don't live there anymore, right? We are no longer in Alexandria because a year ago when we were going to put Trinity in kindergarten for the first time, before pandemic, they were in private day schools, right? Which was costing us like $3,200 a month, right? And that was for 2. And then pandemic hit. And so then we brought them home, and then pandemic hit, and then it's time for them to go to school, right? It's time and of course we all want them to be in school. So long story short, we had to decide, okay, are we going to stay in Alexandria, which Alexandria is amazing, but unfortunately some of the public schools their rating is like a 3 or 2, right? And ratings aren't everything. So I do not want anyone to feel like this is a judgment, because again, I say this saying that there is not a right answer. We here are just sharing like our experience today, right? And so for me, Dwight and I, we had to kind of decide, all right, we have 3 kids. And so we researched the private schools. Tuition was like 30 grand a year. How many kids I have, y'all? That's 90 grand a year for private school, right? And so for us, it came down to what could we do with 90 grand a year? We can go to Europe. We can go with Bonita to Costa Rica. You know what I mean?
You can buy a bigger house.
Okay, buy houses, And so we just decided that for us, we just researched the areas, researched the schools. And so we ended up moving to Montgomery County. And those in the area know Montgomery County historically has had some great schools.
Yes.
And so right now we live like a block from their elementary school. It is rated a 10, and we're nervous and excited, right? So that's our story. And so talking about safety, to me, you think, oh, I'm in this neighborhood where we don't have that nuance of the kids go to school and there's one environment and they come home and it's a different environment, right? It's pretty much all the same environment. But what's interesting is that at the orientation, one of the moms asked about school safety. She was like, what are the drills? What do we do? And so they start explaining they start explaining the drills, and they're like, yeah, then we'll have to go into their cubby and we lock the doors. She's like, those cubbies are too exposed. She was not happy.
Yeah.
That was her real concern, was safety of those children. So for me, how do I feel about the kids going back to school? Hallelujah. Thank you, God. Did I say that already? Praise the Lord, right? But I think that, I don't know, honestly. And I think that's a fair answer, right?
I just want to speak to the drills, because they have a certain amount of drills that they're supposed to hold. And I am of the belief that some of these drills can be traumatic for small children.
I think so.
And I will tell you that if you have young children and they do these drills, be prepared for them to ask you some hard-hitting questions. And they're going to ask you why. And they're going to ask, and when they say why, they don't just mean, why are we doing these drills? Why are they necessary? And you have to determine for your child and your parenting style how you're comfortable sharing with them, because they're getting trauma from outside that's meant to help them. But with small children, I have find them very scary. They want to know why they have to hide. What are they locking the doors, turning the lights off for? And it is all in a measure for them to be safe and to know what to do. So I don't want you to believe that the school system is trying to harm your children, but they're little kids. So they're like, what do you mean a shooter's coming in here? What do you mean why do I need to hide? And, every family has different roles and different ways of handling it. Like May said, she gave her kids tactical ways to handle it. My friend told her son, your class is on the first floor. You open that window, you jump out and you run home. I don't care what anybody says to you, you run home. And as a family, you have to go and determine what's best for your child and what's best for your family. You can ask them how many drills, because in New York City, you have to have 6, including like lockdown. We don't do the hiding part. We don't do that with the kids, but that's just here, right? Again, I have a school with metal detectors. But, what are the number of drills that they're going to go through? Because some of them are fire drills, right? Fire drills are something that happen in any school. So what does that look like? What is a hard lockdown? What is a soft lockdown? What's a shelter? Some of the things that whatever they call the drills in your community, you should feel comfortable asking administration. What are the drills? How many drills are you giving them? And if my child asks questions before they get home to me, what is your response? How are you handling this? Are you sending them to the school counselor? Or are you patting them on their head and be like, oh, no, it's going to be okay? Because for some kids, that'll do. And then some kids be like, what do you mean it's going to be okay? It's going to cause more. So I want everyone to be really conscious of what the drills are and how often they're doing them and what they're telling our children about these drills, so that you are prepared as parents, if they come home and ask you, to have that conversation, especially for you, Michelle, because it's like the first time your kids are going in. So, Trin comes home or Eden comes home and it's like, what is this for? You're prepared, because I think a lot of times, and I could be wrong, what's hardest is that you're not prepared for the questions that your kids are asking you, and you're standing like, why are they asking me this? And now I have to come up with an answer, and you're not sure what is appropriate for their age, for your family, and then what is too much. Because you don't want your kids walking around scared. So you can prepare them. If you can prepare them, like, you're going to have fire drills, you're going to have whatever the school calls them, so that maybe for those kids who are more inquisitive, they know what's coming. It's not a surprise. You're like, okay, fire drill. Okay, whatever shelter and whatever the drill is called, because each district is different. But preparing them, the little ones, I find is very helpful. And it brings down the anxiety for them and also for the parent, because you know what's happening.
Awesome. And we spend a lot of time. Thank you, first of all, Melissa, very much, guys. Make sure your kids are prepared. And so we're talking about preparation, right? We're talking about how we feel about what's already happening. Let's talk a little bit about what's next, right? I'm always going to bring it back to money, right? So let's talk about financial education in the school.
That's you know me. And the dynamic of this group that's talking, right? I can assert that the majority of us have grown up in public schools, and that's why we will uproot from our favorite neighborhoods to spend more in a small, literally, I lived in Columbia, Maryland, most beautiful place. There was a lake in front of my house. I had a 6-bedroom. I asked the neighbor where his daughter was going to school, and he was like, oh, all of our kids are in private school. And I was like, what? And I was like, there's a school right there. Like, I could see it out my window. There's a public school right there. He was like, check the ratings. Everyone in the neighborhood had their kid in private school when there was a school right there. Literally within 3 months, we moved out of our beautiful 6-bedroom house and moved into a 3-bedroom in Washington, D.C. that was more expensive and not by a lake, such that our kids could go into a better school because of the same thing. He was paying almost, he had twin girls. I have 3 kids. You're paying $60,000 a year to have, in my neighborhood, there is the school that my kids are in is 20 minutes from my house, right? In my neighborhood, there's another school that's I think bilingual education is super important. Like, everybody gets to know another language. Like, we the only country in the world that only know one language, because whatever. So in my neighborhood, there's a bilingual school, but that school starts at 8:00 and ends at 2 p.m. I'm like, how much 8:00 to 2 p.m.? Who's gonna be able to do that? How do I get to work? How do I get? First of all, kids need to be in school way more than that. Like, we are way behind. Like, keep them babies in school. I travel, 20 minutes in traffic, maybe 40 minutes sometimes, to put my kid in a school where, literally, the teacher called me yesterday and said, I know that you sent a letter saying that your kid has allergies. We want to figure out what we can do to prepare for his food and all. They're calling me, asking me, telling me that the chef in the school is going to literally prepare a different meal for my kid. I promise you, my neighborhood school is not calling me to ask me, what I'm saying? Just the energy of it. And what I'm saying, and we're talking about finances, we're talking about legacy building. That is why we have to be serious about shifting it now. I fix credit, and it don't matter what your credit is. Michelle, tell them. It don't matter if you in the 400. If you listen to me, I will get you to a 700. You can buy a house. You call Marcus. At the end of the day, we got to get out of these situations where
just say it, sis. Just say it.
I'm just saying, we're talking about safety and all the rest of that stuff because we don't have to talk about the fact that in so many schools in our neighborhoods we grew up in, we have to talk about lack of resources, lack of education. Literally, you said you are literally driving this far such that like your biggest problem is safety, you know, but like where we grew up, like our biggest problem was like, are there books? You know, like, can I bring the book home? No, you can't bring the book home. Why can't you bring the book home? Because if you damage the book, we don't have no more money to get more books. Like that's, you know, like that energy. I don't know. All I'm saying is that, go ahead.
Can I say something really quick? So just kind of on the flip side of that. So I've seen it more so with my African American son than I've seen it with my daughter, right? Yes, the resources are there in these other schools, but I feel like the big thing that we are missing with him is the connection, right? There are certain types of teachers that go and teach in these inner city schools, right? That are not in these affluent schools. And, you know, they're very comfortable with Johnny and his tantrums, but they may not be okay with Darrell in his speaking out in class or the way, you know what I mean? And so one of the things that I've had to do, and Michelle knows, I've talked to her about this at length, is really be my son's advocate in these spaces, right? We are very used to this as adults, going into these spaces at work and professional and having to assert ourselves, right? But when your kids are growing up in these other environments, and to your point, yes, the resources are there, right? But the support is not. And one of the things that we had with my son in the middle school, you know, he's very social, right? He's not a tussling bad, you know, he's not I hate that word, bad kid.
He ain't bad. We all know he's bad.
He's very vocal. He's, you know, he's the cool kid. He's the funny kid, you know, like, you know, whatever. And a lot of them felt threatened by, you know, his confidence, the way, you know, he was jokey. He always had a comeback. They felt challenged by that, right? Because it wasn't something that they recognized, because a lot of times they don't see in our kids what they see in their own. So I've had to be his advocate in a lot of spaces because he doesn't understand microaggressions. He doesn't understand these things. He doesn't understand why, you know, Johnny was talking in class and nothing happened to him, but I was talking to class and they sent me to the principal's office, right? He didn't understand those things. So I will say, it's not always greener on the other side of the hill. There are different things that you have to kind of deal with there. Like I said, again, from my experience, and in the area that we live in, California, Bay Area. But yeah, so I think, yes, great. But a lot of times things that might be challenges with our kids, my son doesn't pick up things as fast as my daughter does. And, you know, things that, you know, kids, all kids, right? When they don't understand, they sometimes get disruptive. They were so willing to consider that a behavioral issue rather than an educational issue. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was different. And I'll put that out there really quick. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this educational piece because this is a real thing for me. So I'm the financial part of the education.
One last thing real quick. Parents, all parents out there, please listen very carefully. Always be on the ready and prepared to go sit in the classroom, not to punish your child, but to see how this teacher reacts. I remember one of the things about my education is going to private school and public school was that my mother, let me tell you something. You know, when everyone gets real still, I knew it was my mother. All parents, especially parents of us, the global majority, be prepared to do those pop-ups. Make sure that you hold those educators and all the staff and all the stakeholders in that building accountable. You know what? I'm sorry that there are systematic changes, and Michelle knows me. I believe burn it down. There's a lot of structural problems. You know, I'm a burn it down kind of person, but I know that our kids are going to school right now, so we can't burn it all down. But what I'm saying to you as parents of the global majority for our children, someone in the family, someone you trust, if it can't be yourself, someone be on the ready to do the pop-up. Your kid comes home and says something that just doesn't sit well. You're not sure. They don't explain it. I'll be there. I'll be there. You come in there, because some things, yes, are maladaptive behaviors. They're with other kids. They're kids, right? All kids love a conversation. If someone is talking about something funny, I'd rather pay attention to that, and I'm a grown-up, than some math problem that's giving me the struggles, or some literature or something that is not as interesting. They're children, right? They're easily distracted. That's why they're able to pick up so many things so quickly, because they take in all this information. But also, please be on the ready to hold those people accountable. Do not speak to my child in a way that you would not speak to your own. For parents that are not able to come there, I am, as a school counselor, I'm the advocate. You don't want to run up on my kids because Miss Miller's coming. My kids know, my students know, like, if a teacher makes you feel some kind of way, come get me. If you can't communicate with that teacher, because I'm there for you, I'm your family member. I'm in the place of your parent or guardian until your parent or guardian can get there. The teachers know the kids that are under my watch, tread lightly. You're going to show them the respect and treat them with dignity. Not because of any of this, all this other. They're human beings. They're taking these things and they're carrying with them all the way through their childhood, through their adulthood. And I'm always there to be a support and advocate. But parents, if you can't yourself, you have a family member, somebody, be on the ready to just be like, no, I'm just here to observe. Because let me tell you something, even when you don't say anything, when they know that that's the one who's going to show up, they're gonna act right and fly straight. And maybe it was your kid, but eventually it'll become a habit, because you can't talk to mine or treat mine any kind of way. And all of them are mine. So that's how I want. But that's just, sorry, tangent.
It's okay, but it's a good tangent because it's a good tip, right? It doesn't matter where your child is attending school, right? You do want to be today I'm at orientation and they have you go around to the little tables, right? And so the first table is the PTA, and I'm like, ooh, yay. She was like, you're excited? I was like, yeah, where's the form? I want to be a part of their education. So, we don't have too much more time. Of course, every time we have these panels, it's like we never have enough time, right? So of course we will come back. We'll do the state of education again. But before, we're not closing out yet, but I still do want to talk about, financial education in the school system. So a lot of us, we've talked about different perspectives because we are, to Benita's point, the panel here happens to be African American, right? Whether we're first generation, second generation, or a product of African slaves in this country. So we've been here for generations. It doesn't matter, right? But the reality is that we are trying, I think Melissa said it, we are, because of our background, right? Because of the backs of the people that got us here, we're trying to do the same for our children. And it doesn't matter how we're doing it, we're all doing it and we're doing it well, right? So whether that's a private school, whether that's charter schools, whether that's taking advantage of programs that are out there, whether that's relocating your entire family, right? It doesn't matter. We're all taking steps to give our children something better. And Melissa and I had a conversation recently when we talked about giving our children that opportunity, how sometimes that situation can backfire on us, right? Because as much as we want to give, we can't not make wanting to give them something better like that the only focus. So I had a girlfriend, and she moved from New York City. She's a Howard grad, MBA money. She came back, moved to Montgomery County, sent her daughter to high school here, right? The school was a 10, right? The school also was on the news for the children painting swastikas and having nooses hanging from the trees, right? And so when we talked about it, her feedback, her daughter's now has graduated from high school from Montgomery County Public Schools, and now she's off to college. And she says if she had to do it over again, she would reassess and she would have moved to a more diverse community and put her child into either a private school or a charter school or some place that still has great academics, but she wouldn't have removed her from the community. And all of our communities are different. Community doesn't necessarily mean black, brown, white, blue, purple. Community can mean Spanish speaking. Community could mean, like in Marcus's case, it could mean like being out there in the country. He always says he's a country boy, so I'm not playing him or anything. But that could be community. Could be where your church is. Like community could be anything. But a lot of times, especially I will speak for myself, as Black people, we historically have moved out of whatever that community is, outside of our communities, to give our children a better experience. But as we wrap up today, I'm sorry, Nate, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say something interesting about the community. When it came to picking where I lived, right, I was very determined to live in a diverse neighborhood, right? So it's kind of interesting, and I don't think I had thought about the dynamics that way, right? Very much my neighborhood needed to have, my fear was that I didn't want my son to walk through my neighborhood and someone target him, right? I wanted, us to live in a neighborhood where my children felt comfortable, right? And that was the case. And I will say that even though my children go to schools where they are definitely the minority, in most cases, I find that they have befriended and kind of clicked up with other minority children, not necessarily Black children, but other minority children. So they've created like their own kind of support system, if you will. So I just wanted to add that in and really quickly, to where you're right. In the community, there's everybody. And then even in school, they've sought out their own little community as well.
Awesome. And so, what we'll do today as we wrap up, and this exact panel will be back if you guys would love to talk, because we've been in touch. Yay! We didn't talk student loans, right? And that is, we have 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks before the moratorium on student loans is over, right? We didn't talk about, one of the things I want to talk about in preparation as far as our children is, what are your preparations? Do you want to send your children to school with student loans? What are we doing? How can we avoid sending them to school with student loans?
Melissa.
This right now, there's nothing wrong with community college. I know a lot of people feel strongly, but your kids could do 2 years in community college, get some life experience, get a good education. There are a lot of wonderful community colleges that won't break your bank. And then they can transition to 4 years and still get scholarships. Sometimes you're not ready to go right away. If I could have done it again and still met Michelle, I would have taken 2 years to mature some, going to community college. And because I just finished paying off my Howard loans last year.
It's you. Congratulations.
Lord, but these grad school loans that
I am in the throes.
Vote independent.
I am in the throes.
You hear me? You better forgive these student loans, Joe Biden.
I tell my kids all the time. I was like, you better get some scholarships because I'm paying back my own student loans. I can't pay yours too.
I think there's a couple of things that I kind of joke about, but I'm actually a little bit serious about it. I think there's a couple of things that people should have to do throughout life. Number one, I think that everybody should have to work fast food. Mm-hmm. And I think you learn so much about how to treat people, the hustle behind it. Like you need, because I work fast food and I've seen when people treat people bad through the drive-through, what might end up on your plate or in your burger, you might want to be careful about that. People don't. But then the other thing is, I think everybody should go to community college, because you're investing in yourself. It's not just this is the flunky version of college. No, this is like where you kind of can training wheels yourself into what real life can look like. Go to school, balance what having a job looks like. Go to school full-time, work part-time, live at home, for a little bit, help mom and dad out. So you get a chance to kind of experience real life without having the full responsibility of real life. But yet you do have the high level responsibility of getting your head in those books and learning and investing in yourself, because I think that's one of the issues that we have throughout schools and even in the workforce, that they're not really invested. They don't really care. And they just look at the money. They look at the status. They look at whatever, but deep down, they don't have the heart to like really invest and serve themselves, serve the greater purpose, so that they can actually serve the community. And then when somebody does come across that does have that same, set of morals and ethics and grind or whatever, we tend to stand out like from the pack. Well, I think that there should be more like us, but that's our responsibility. Because my dad used to always say, if they won't come, then I will grow them. So it's for us to like grow it. So the Millers, Linnea, the Grants, the Mortons, the Fields, like Linnea, I don't know your last name, so that's why I call you by your first name. But like it's up to us. Yo, if God gave us 2 and 3 children and we know the right way, what we think is the right way, give it to them so that they can impact, the future going ahead, and teach other circles how to invest. That's my spiel about.
Yeah. So, as we wrap up, I want to go around the room and I want to talk a little bit about, we always have to come back to legacy. Usually we kick it off, but I said, I'm not going to bore them with that this time. So, and plus this is my family that I'm talking to. So, we didn't need all the formalities, and you guys have heard almost everyone on this stage besides Melissa talk about legacy, right? So, but let's talk a little bit as we close out, everyone, just say your farewells. Where can people find you again? Let them know again how you serve this community and your clients, if you have them, or the world. When I want you to talk a little bit about not necessarily what legacy means to you, but education. What are you doing, or what do you think other people in your community can do to prepare the next generation to build a legacy, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's a will, an estate plan, buying property, having fabulous credit. What is it that we can do to educate the next generation in order to make sure that legacy continues, right? They say wealth usually only lasts one generation. So I can work my entire life, break my back, and leave everything to my children, and that next generation, probability statistically, is doomed, right? They're not gonna have that wealth. So what can we do? Benita, I'm gonna start with you.
Life insurance. Seriously, if you love your kids while you're alive, the way that you show that you love them when you're not here is through life insurance. I really truly believe I'm properties. I have 9 properties. I'm credit repair. I love building wealth, but like nothing builds wealth generationally as much as life insurance. So like and it's not, the sooner you get it, the cheaper it is. But definitely life insurance and wills are great, but trusts are much more secure. And literally you can do it online. Like just Google, like you can do it online. Yeah, that's what I got.
Right. Life insurance, y'all. We talk about trust and estate planning all the time, and that is a huge part of it. I mean, usually it's cheap, especially term up front. Find someone who you can trust. Melissa.
So, as the only panelist without children, so legacy, what I think is what I try to do with the kids is I try to share with them the things that I wish someone had shared with me. And I encourage all the students who I have taught, who I have worked with, who I still come back and they talk to me, and I encourage them as they transition to parents and different things. Try to make sure that you are pushing the needle, not just for yourself, but the person coming behind you. Because when you do that, not only does it help you and it helps the people coming behind, but the changes are enormous. And the way that it lifts your spirit to see someone, at least for me, when I see my students doing things that if I was their age, I only wished I could have, that makes me feel like I've done something. And so I encourage them to do the same thing, because there's no words to quantify how it feels to see them surpass me. I'm in love with when the goal, when I talk to them, I'm like, you are supposed to do better than me. And it doesn't matter. I want you to do better. But Miss, no, you do better than me. And you tell someone to do better than you, because that just makes my heart explode with love and joy and hope. Surpass me.
Amen.
Amen. Melissa and I had a conversation one day, and we were talking, we're all at the point in our lives where we have aging parents, aging grandparents. And I was talking about my girls, and I was like, yeah, this one's going to be the one to like fly the coop and never look back. Right. And I said, on this one. And she said, no. She said, they're all going to go live their best lives. We'll be all right. I said, you know what? Touche. Touche, right? Marcus, what about you?
Well, when I think about like legacy and what I'm doing to extend that and help others, I think one of the rules that I always have lived by is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I want somebody to show me the better way, to hear what my dreams and my goals and my aspirations are. And, I am 44 now, and these young dudes, they're calling me OG now. And I'm like, bro, look, I know the hairline is kind of messing around and the gray hairs, but I ain't OG yet. I still got a jump shot. I still can get out here and I'm still fly. But but I always grew up around older dudes, like my grandfather, both of my grandfathers, great uncles, and their friends. And I would listen to them talk. And what I gravitate most towards now is even like the old dudes. So I listen to Deion Sanders, Steve Harvey, some of the older guys that have actually done some greater things. So I want somebody. I want to be in a circle and closely connected to a circle that's greater than where I am, and they've done more. And so I always encourage these young dudes and my clients as well. I treat everybody like family anyway. So I try to do for them as I want somebody to do for me. So I want somebody to say, hey, man, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your goal? What's your 3 to 5 year, the 135? Like, what are your goals? I'm like, all right, well, if you don't mind, like, I think you maybe implement this, tweak this, do that. Okay, cool. And I try to get it done. So then they did that for me. So I do that for somebody else. But then with young dudes, like young men, like there's a challenge that I'm like, hey, like, what you doing? Like, let's go get it. Like it's no time to be passive. Let's like hit the gas. Let's go get it. And for my clients, I try to stay in a place of education with seminars and be the trusted advisor. Just make sure that people can hear it and not it be so grand of a process and of buying a home, understanding credit or whatever. It ain't that hard. It really is not. It's just a matter of somebody taking it like Benita does and like making it really manageable to where you can digest it. And then once you have the ability to digest it, understand it, then you can take that and you can give it to somebody else. So that's to do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Amen. Amen. Linnea.
Okay, last so what legacy is to me in regards to my family especially is really about one, excellence, right? And excellence meaning that there's a certain standard that you have for yourself and everything that you do, right? And that you're constantly trying to one up that standard of excellence. So I think that's probably the first one. The second one is experiences, right? A lot of times when you come from a certain socioeconomic background, there's a lot of experiences that you just don't have. I was just talking to my boss the other day, and she just got back with her 13-year-old from Amsterdam and France. And even though financially I'm not there, right, in my where I am financially, making sure that I do create experiences for my children. We do national parks. Michelle laughs at me because our whole nature wilderness thing that me and my kids kind of have going on. But just kind of creating experiences, something that's outside of what they see every day. So that's the last, the second one. And then I think the last one, and this one just came to me, is really empathy, right? Looking at those around you and realizing that every one of us, you guys, has a certain level of privilege, right? I know that we're always trained to look at everybody else's privilege, where a lot of times you don't look at your own. And it could be able-bodied privilege. It could be, there's so many privileges that we have, that things that God has blessed us with that we take for granted, and we assume that everybody got the same thing, and they didn't, right? And so applying that, looking at other people and saying, okay, everybody didn't get the same thing that I have. How can I be empathetic to their process? So those are my 3 things as far as legacy, and the things that I kind of want to leave with my young people, and hopefully they kind of carry on throughout their life.
Yay, I love that. And and I'll just piggyback, because I think that what everyone said is so important, because legacy is about, I say this all the time, it's about more than just money, right? Money is important, right? Because money pays for these experiences, money pays for these opportunities, money pays for that house, money keeps that credit right? Money pays for that life insurance. So money is important, but it is a tool. For me, why money is important, right? Why that financial part is important of building a legacy is because it creates the freedom to pursue a lot of those other things, right? Freedom. And so for me, the things that I want to pass along to my children and children's children, and actually to our community, right? Because I had children before I had children. Linnea's children were my first set of children, right? And her 3 were my first 3. So for me, the legacy that I would like to leave, I always say, for my children, for my community, and for the greater world, right? For the world at large. That's who I would like to impact if God allows me to. And those things to me that I would like to, my tools are the tools that I would like to communicate to people. One are faith, family, and fun, right? So with my girls, it's all about faith first, right? Because in those moments when you are alone, on those moments when your bank account feels empty, right? And those when whether it's a rich person's mortgage problem or a poor person's rent problem, right? Those moments, faith is going to get you through. And then family, because for me, family is almost everything. If it wasn't for God, family would be up there, right? And then fun, right? Because to everyone's point about, experiences, life is so hard. And if we haven't learned anything over the last 3 years, it is so important for us to enjoy these moments, because so many people have left us. So many lives have been changed. So many people have been impacted. I remember talking to Benita, it was during the pandemic, and we were in shock, and she was talking about, I'm going to put a little bit of business, not personal business, but she was talking about a church in her community. And she said, as the pandemic went on, at first it was a few people in line. Then it was a little bit more people in line. And then about a year in, it was wrapped around the block. So people have been impacted. So we just have to remember to have fun, right? Enjoy it. And so somebody asked me the other day, they were like, what's your quote? People always ask you, they do these interviews. And I couldn't think. It put me on the spot. And I said, if you can be anything, be kind. Right? And if you're enjoying yourself and having a good life and having fun, then it's easy to be kind. You don't have to find it. Let me be nice to this person today. So faith, family, and fun. That's my thing when it comes to legacy. You came off mute, Marcus.
I love that. I just want to say real quick.
I love it.
Like you said, be kind. Like that's the rule. I've been teaching Taya that since she was probably about 18 months old. Like going to school, going to the babysitters or whatever. What do you got to do today? She knows, be nice and obey. And I teach her that. And then, the affirmations. And I think it's very important, I am beautiful. Where? Inside and outside. These things, but I also teach her a little some stuff to be like, hey, if don't nobody push me, don't nobody touch me, because I'm going to have a good day. I tell her, hey, back up off me, cause she's pretty good. You got to know how to.
You gotta have hands.
Hey, listen. You can't have all of this God-given stuff and an enemy not come after it. So you tell somebody like, get up off me. So anyway, be nice and obey. And I love what you're teaching your girls and future generations. So we are the pillars upon which these future generations will stand upon.
Yay! See, this is why, y'all. This is why I bring these crews together.
Thank you for doing it. This was amazing.
So, as much as I want us to just keep going, we all like, in order for us to build these legacies, we got things to do. So, with that, y'all, we love you. Thank you, family and friends, for joining us today. And we're going to do State of Education again. So, you know how the call comes, the back call comes. So when you see it, let's do this again. I love y'all.
Love you too. Shout out Jamila for the
Jamila. Yeah. All right, I love you.
Well, thank you. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Do the same. Y'all take care. See you soon.